My name is Mr. Petrov, and I am 75 years old, a watchmaker in the heart of Prague. For as long as I can remember, the smell of brass polish, fine oil, and ancient wood has filled my small shop. My days were a symphony of tiny clicks and gentle whirs, the rhythmic heartbeat of countless clocks and watches passing through my hands. Each gear, each spring, each delicate balance wheel was a universe I understood, a puzzle I loved to solve. I've seen generations of timepieces, from pocket watches passed down through families to modern wristwatches that merely needed a new battery. My hands, though aged and sometimes trembling ever so slightly, still held the precision of a surgeon. I took immense pride in my work, in breathing life back into forgotten mechanisms. My shop was more than just a place of business. It was a sanctuary, a quiet corner of Prague where time felt both honored and under my command. I had dedicated my entire life to this craft, learning from my own grandfather, whose tools I still used with reverence. My wife, bless her soul, understood my love for the ticking things. She often said my shop was my other true love. She passed many years ago, and since then the silence in my small apartment above the shop has grown heavier, broken only by the persistent ticking from below. But the world outside my window had changed. Fewer people came to my door now. Everyone had a telephone that told them the time, a digital clock that never needed winding. My beloved mechanical watches were seen as relics, quaint curiosities rather than essential tools. The repair jobs dwindled, replaced by requests for simple battery changes, which felt like a waste of my lifetime of skill. The income shrunk with each passing month, barely covering the rent for my shop, a building I'd lived in for 50 years. My landlord, a younger man, kept increasing the rent, speaking of market rates and modernizing. He didn't understand the history, the soul of this place. I started to worry, a quiet, gnawing anxiety that kept me awake at night. What would happen to me, to my shop, to all these beautiful, silent pieces of time that still waited for my touch? My greatest fear, my internal nemesis, was becoming useless, a burden to a world that had no place for an old man and his ancient craft. I feared losing my independence, my dignity, and the very purpose that had defined my 75 years. I started to ration my meals, making a single pot of stew last for 3 days, or sometimes just having a piece of bread and tea for dinner. The cold seeped into my bones more easily now because I was careful with the heating. Every crown counted, every penny was hoarded, but still, the numbers never seemed to add up. I tried to adapt, of course. I put a small, handwritten sign in my window offering repairs for all kinds of modern electronics, though truthfully, I understood little about their inner workings beyond a basic battery replacement. I even tried to learn, poring over dusty books on circuits, but it felt like trying to grasp smoke. The few times I attempted a modern repair, I often made things worse, feeling clumsy and foolish. I offered small discounts, hoping to attract more customers, but it seemed to make little difference. People hurried past, their faces lit by the glow of their smart telephones, their eyes never meeting mine, never glancing at the faded sign that proclaimed, "Mr. Petrov, Master Watchmaker." The loneliness pressed in on me like the weight of a heavy blanket. One particularly cold morning, as I was struggling to replace a tiny spring, my oldest pair of tweezers, the ones my grandfather gave me, snapped in my hand. They were irreplaceable, perfectly weighted, an extension of my own fingers. This small break felt like a huge setback, a sign that even my tools were abandoning me. Replacing them would cost a significant amount of money I simply did not have. A few days later, a young man came in, scowling, demanding a refund for a watch battery I had replaced just the week before. He claimed it stopped working already. I knew my work was good, that the battery was fresh, but his angry words cut deep. He spoke as if my age made me incompetent, as if my craft was a trick. I gave him his money back, my hands trembling, feeling that deep ache of uselessness growing stronger. Then came the final blow, a crisp, official-looking letter slipped under my door by the landlord. It wasn't a warning this time, it was an eviction notice. 2 weeks. 2 weeks until I had to leave my shop, my home. My heart felt like a broken pendulum, unable to swing, unable to tick. I sat on my stool, surrounded by the quiet hum of time, and felt my own time running out. I thought of selling my most prized possession, a beautiful antique pocket watch, intricately engraved, that had belonged to my own grandfather. It was the watch that inspired me to become a watchmaker, the very first piece I ever held in my hands as a boy. Selling it felt like selling a part of my soul, but what choice did I have? It was my only hope. I carefully polished its silver casing, its delicate hands, remembering my grandfather's kind smile. Just as I made up my mind to take it to a pawn shop the next day, a small, timid knock came at my door. It was a young girl, no older than 7, with wide, anxious eyes and tear stains on her rosy cheeks. In her hands, she clutched a beautiful porcelain doll, its head dangling precariously, completely detached from its body. Its painted smile was intact, but its once bright eyes seemed to plead for help. Her mother stood behind her, looking apologetic. "I'm so sorry to bother you, Mr. Petrov," the mother began, "but Hannah here has been heartbroken all day. This doll was her grandmother's and it fell. We've tried everything, but the head won't stay on. We thought perhaps with your delicate hands you might know how to fix it." I looked at the fragile doll, then at the little girl's trembling lip. My heart, so heavy just moments before, felt a tiny flicker of something warm. This was not a watch, but it required the same careful touch, the same understanding of small, delicate parts. I took the doll gently from Hannah. "Come back tomorrow," I told them. "I will see what I can do." I spent the entire evening working on the doll. I used my finest tweezers, usually reserved for watch movements, to retrieve tiny shards of porcelain from the neck, carefully cleaned the edges, and then with a special, clear adhesive, I meticulously reattached the head. It was slow, painstaking work, far more involved than a simple battery change. I ignored the eviction notice lying on my workbench, ignored the rumbling in my stomach, ignored the weight of my own despair. For those hours, I was just a craftsman, focused on bringing joy back to a small girl's face. I wouldn't charge them a crown, of course. It was a simple act of kindness, the only thing I felt I had left to give. The next afternoon, Hannah and her mother returned. Hannah gasped when she saw her doll, its head perfectly reattached, its smile as bright as ever. She hugged it tightly, her face radiating pure, unadulterated happiness. "Thank you, Mr. Petrov, thank you so much," she squealed, burying her face in the doll's restored shoulder. Her mother looked at me with gratitude that went beyond words. "Mr. Petrov," she said, "you have no idea what this means to Hannah, and to me. This doll is so precious to us. We tried everywhere else, but no one would even look at it." I simply smiled, feeling a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the heating. "It was my pleasure," I replied, meaning every word. As they left, I felt a flicker of hope, a tiny spark in the encroaching darkness. Perhaps I wasn't entirely useless after all. But then my eyes fell back on the eviction notice, and the heavy blanket of despair descended once more. Hannah's joy had been a momentary distraction, a beautiful but fleeting dream. The reality of my situation of losing everything was still very much present. I went to bed that night feeling the coldest I had ever felt, the deepest sadness I had ever known. The following morning, I opened my shop not with a sense of purpose, but with a heavy heart, preparing myself for the inevitable. I half expected the landlord to show up with his papers, ready to seal my fate. But instead, a woman I didn't recognize stood at my door holding a camera. Hannah's mother was with her, smiling brightly. "Mr. Petrov," Hannah's mother said, "this is Teresa. She's a journalist for the local newspaper. I told her about what you did for Hannah, and she was very touched. She wants to write a story about you." I was bewildered. A journalist for fixing a doll. Teresa was kind, her eyes full of genuine interest as she asked me about my shop, about my life, about the art of watchmaking. I spoke softly, telling her about my grandfather, about the changing times, and yes, even about the little porcelain doll. I didn't mention my financial troubles, my pending eviction. That felt too personal, too shameful. Teresa listened intently, taking notes, taking photographs of my tools, my hands, the ticking clocks that filled my shelves. She even took a picture of the mended doll, which Hannah had insisted on bringing back to show off. A few days later, a newspaper appeared under my door. On the front page, beneath a beautiful photograph of me, carefully examining a watch movement, was a headline that read, "The Unsung Timekeeper. Master Watchmaker Preserves Time and Kindness in Old Prague." The article was beautiful, painting a picture not just of a craftsman, but of a soul dedicated to beauty and precision, a quiet guardian of a dying art. It spoke of my kindness in fixing Hannah's doll, weaving it into a larger narrative of resilience and quiet dignity. The day the article came out, everything changed. People started to come, not just a few, but dozens, then hundreds. They came with old watches, broken clocks, family heirlooms that had sat in drawers for years. They came not just for repairs, but to see me, to shake my hand, to tell me how much they appreciated my story. Some simply brought flowers, or a cup of coffee, or a small bag of pastries. They offered to pay for the doll repair I had done for Hannah, but I refused, telling them the joy of seeing Hannah's smile was payment enough. When my landlord came by, a scowl already on his face, he found a line of people extending out the door. He tried to speak to me about the eviction, but a kind woman holding a bag of warm bread gently but firmly told him, "You cannot evict Mr. Petrov. He is a treasure of Prague." The landlord looked stunned, then quickly retreated. Soon after, he returned, not with an eviction notice, but with a new lease at a reduced rent. He said he understood now. He even offered to help clean up the old facade of my shop. It was unbelievable. My shop became a bustling hub of activity once more. I started taking on an apprentice, a bright young man named Jan, who had read the article and dreamed of learning a traditional craft. I taught him everything I knew, patiently guiding his hands as he worked with the tiny gears and springs. The joy of passing on my knowledge, of seeing a young person connect with this ancient art, filled my heart with a renewed sense of purpose. I even created a small kindness corner in my shop, a place where children could bring their broken toys for me to fix, free of charge, just as I had done for Hannah's doll. It was my way of paying forward the incredible wave of kindness that had saved my shop, and me. I found myself smiling more, laughing more, feeling more connected to the world than I had in decades. The silence in my apartment at night was now filled with the gentle, rhythmic ticking of 100 happy clocks. Sometimes Hannah would visit, a little older now, no longer clutching her doll but holding my hand, her eyes sparkling. She would sit quietly watching me work, her presence a sweet reminder of how everything began. I learned that the smallest act of kindness, given when you feel you have nothing left to give, can create the most profound ripple effect, changing not only one life but many. My 75 years had taught me many things about time, but the most important lesson came unexpectedly, in the form of a broken porcelain doll. It taught me that sometimes, when you are at your lowest point, feeling lost and forgotten, it is not the grand gestures, but the quiet, simple acts of human connection that truly wind up the clock of hope and set your world ticking anew. My shop, once a place where time was repaired, became a place where time itself seemed to heal wounds and bring unexpected blessings.